Before a single blueprint is even drawn or a foundation poured, an entire architectural project can be doomed by just one casual question in a first meeting. So, welcome to this deep dive. Today, we are unpacking a really fascinating reference guide for architects on how to spot problematic clients before you ever sign a contract. The core premise here is that qualifying the client is, well, it's just as crucial as actually designing the building. Okay, let's unpack this.
It really is a massive perspective shift. We're basically looking at a framework of specific red flags that professionals watch out for during those initial consultations. It's, a toolkit for protecting your time, your sanity, and your creative integrity by spotting toxic patterns early.
And it makes total sense that those patterns usually start with the most immediate friction point in any professional relationship, right? Money and time.
Right, yeah. And the most glaring early warning sign I mentioned is the fake budget.
Oh, right, the lowballing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is a scenario where a client deliberately lowballs their budget, sometimes by as much as half, but they still demand this massive, highly complex luxury design.
Which is wild. Like, they treat the initial meeting like they're bargaining at a flea market.
Yeah, because they know architects often charge a percentage fee based on the total build cost. So they're just trying to game the system to secure a lower baseline quote.
And closely related to that is the fee haggler, or what they call the lump sum trap.
Right, where clients demand an unconditional fixed fee right from day one.
Long before the scope of the project is even clearly defined.
Exactly. It's just a calculated setup to sneak in free scope expansions later down the line.
Yeah. And speaking of getting things for free, there's also the free advice trap. This is when people expect unpaid labor disguised as a, quote unquote, quick question.
Oh, definitely. Like
I
calling up
want
to
to
ask
know
how many
how many
units fit
units
on a
I
block
can
they
fit
haven't even
onto a
purchased
block.
yet, or requesting a free site visit just to brainstorm
Come
ideas.
visit and take a look.
I mean, you would never walk out of a doctor's clinic or a lawyer's office and just expect not to pay for a diagnostic consultation.
No, you wouldn't. And what's fascinating here is that these clients view architecture entirely as an hourly commodity.
They miss the whole intellectual property aspect.
Totally. They completely miss the unseen decades of experience that actually make answering those quick questions possible in the first place.
Right. And when a client refuses to respect your time up front, it usually means they won't respect your creative process either, which leads to the armchair expert.
Oh, the rigid Pinterest board clients.
Yes. They essentially want to treat a highly trained architect like a human photocopier.
They want the prestige of hiring a professional, but with total control and, zero actual expertise.
And if they aren't micromanaging the design themselves, they bring in the committee of critics.
Right, because they lack the internal confidence to trust their own taste. So they just crowdsource approval from their parents, their neighbors, their friends.
Which inevitably dilutes the vision until it becomes a generic compromise, right? It offends no one, but excites no one either.
Exactly. And then you run into the show me more trap.
Oh, where they aggressively demand exact addresses of past projects.
Yeah, but not for due diligence. They're usually just fishing for fully realized ideas to steal and take to a cheaper draftsperson. It's all about extracting value without paying for it.
Wow. And that brings us to the overcapitalization excuse. This is when a client decides to cut corners on their own bespoke dream home because they're, well, inherently stingy. They use the excuse that they're terrified of spending more on the build than the lot is worth for a future sale.
Which sounds logical to a lot of people, but
Wait, yeah, let me push back on that actually. Isn't designing for the next guy just smart economics? I mean, shouldn't people care about resale value?
well, it's a very common assumption, sure.
Yeah.
But designing a bespoke asset for a hypothetical stranger actually stifles innovation.
Okay, how so?
It leads directly to watered-down, incredibly generic architecture. You really cannot overcapitalize on lifestyle, joy, and happiness.
Right, because you're the one living in it.
Exactly. If you're building a dream home, cutting corners for an imaginary future buyer entirely defeats the purpose of custom architecture.
That is such a fascinating paradox. We are so conditioned by the real estate market to view our homes as liquid assets that we actually self-sabotage our own daily living experience.
Just to appease a hypothetical buyer who doesn't even exist yet.
Right. But beyond the money and the design control, the true red flags ultimately boil down to basic human character.
Oh, absolutely. The most critical behavior to watch for is called disrespecting the pack.
Ah, the classic receptionist test.
Yes, it's when a client is incredibly charming and polite to the lead architect, but then turns around and speaks dismissively to the receptionists, junior staff, or project managers.
It's just a massive character flaw.
It really is. It tells you everything you need to know about how they handled power dynamics. Clients who mistreat your team will inevitably create a toxic project environment, and they will absolutely destroy your studio's morale.
So it's basically the ultimate warning sign to just walk away.
100%.
So what does this all mean for you listening? Even if you're not an architect, this document is a universal masterclass in setting boundaries, spotting manipulators, and protecting your own professional worth. It's about knowing the value of your expertise and refusing to compromise it.
Yeah, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's a vital reminder that every professional relationship is a two-way street. The interview always goes both ways.
Exactly. Which leaves us with a pretty interesting thought to chew on. If these 10 behaviors are the ultimate red flags, what exactly does the perfect green flag client look like when they first walk into a studio?